The larvae of the rose chafer can be found all year round. The term white grub unfortunately is attributed to both rose chafer larvae and cockchafer larvae, as in both cases they are white grubs. Normally we should really only refer to white grubs for cockchafer and otiorhynchus larvae, which are indeed considered plant predators and for which we have intervention methods to limit their activity. Rose chafers are insects from the family D, beetles that reproduce by laying eggs, and the eggs transform into large white larvae that will live for 3 years before becoming adults again. And these white larvae only live in environments with decomposing organic matter, such as decomposing wood. And it is only in this environment that these larvae develop, feeding on dead matter. In the first year, they are not very large. And then they reach the 3rd year. They can become relatively impressive larvae in size. As in our gardens, we pile up plant debris, either in the form of a pile of branches, a pile of wood, or in the compost. If there is wood in the compost, and only if there is wood in the compost, well, we might come across these large larvae. But what needs to be understood is that they are decomposers, so they are extremely useful to the life of the compost. The Cetons are essential because they will, with their mandibles, grind wood, and without their presence, the compost evolves much more slowly. It does not eat any living matter, meaning it does not eat roots, it does not eat living branches, nor leaves. When you turn your compost, when you collect your compost to use in your garden, even if the larvae go into the vegetable garden, there is no risk for these vegetables. We do not consider these larvae as parasitic insects. The adult Cetons are therefore beetles. There are 2 species. The golden Cetonia, which is a very beautiful insect with a metallic green color. It is an insect that moves from one plant to another. These are insects that feed on nectar. So in fact it is the flowers that interest them, and the flowers of many species of plants. And it's the same for the second species, called the gloomy Cetonia, which is smaller, grey with small white spots, and can also be found in flowers like roses, for example. To get the nectar, they nibble on the petals surrounding the stamens and the pistil. So we might end up with ornamental flowers that are a bit less aesthetically pleasing. These are still protected insects, the Cetonias, which we must not destroy, and on which it is absolutely out of the question to use insecticides. So these Cetonia larvae can be confused with 2 other larvae, which are very, very similar visually, which are the larvae of the cockchafer and the larvae of the rhinoceros beetle, which are 2 other beetles that have the same mode of reproduction, but do not live in the same environment. That is to say, in the case of Cetonia larvae, the larvae of cockchafer and rhinoceros beetle larvae will live at the base of living plants and feed on the roots of living plants, thus in the soil. Therefore, one might come across this type of larvae in their garden while digging, in the vegetable patch, at the base of rose bushes, at the base of a tree, fruit tree, but also often, and this is particularly the case with rhinoceros beetles, in potted plants. The potting soil suits them perfectly because in addition we water, so it's a humid environment. And this can have very annoying consequences, even leading to the death of a plant. They can eat the entire root system, and generally we notice it when the plants start to wilt, giving the impression that they lack water. It is rather advisable to first, obviously, eliminate them manually. For a potted plant, this is, let's say, relatively possible. In a soil-filled environment, you cannot turn over a large volume of soil to be sure of discovering all the larvae. Therefore, there are other natural and biological methods to potentially eliminate these Xanthon and otiorhynchus larvae. We actually only act on the larvae. It is complicated to act on the adults. The Xanthon and the otiorhynchus have an adult form that flies at night and only at night. And there, on the other hand, the adult Xanthons and otiorhynchus feed on the leaves. And when you have plants with leaves that are cut on the blade, a little bit as if they had been punched, well, that's typical of bites from adult Xanthons and otiorhynchus. There is a biological method with a parasitic nematode called Hepteroptatis. They are placed in a powder that is diluted with water, and we will water the base of the plants, either infested or likely to be infested. And these tiny microscopic worms will go and parasitize these large white worms. There is a little trick. If you have potted plants where you've detected the presence of these white worms, which are in the soil, it's complicated to imagine removing them by hand. Well, the solution is to drown them. You take your pot, immerse it completely in a larger container full of water, An hour later, the larvae will have risen to the surface. And you have saved your plant.